Kids these days, youth these days. How about saints these days?
What does it look like to draw close to Jesus and live as Catholics in our increasingly complex, confusing world?
We're Susanna and Krysanne, promising no cliches, just honest conversations, personal stories,
and insights into issues that affect us as modern Indian Catholics. Welcome to Saints These Days.
Welcome to Saints These Days. So welcome back to the episode Saints These Days video and audio edition. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing our faces last time. I enjoyed seeing your face, Susanna.
I always enjoy seeing your face, Krysanne.
But I was like, for a second, I was like, I did not know what you were going to say. But I'm glad. That's good news for me. So, in our last episode, if you watch that, you'll know that we talked about this concept of small groups and how essential they are for evangelization. We believe that it is the one thing that's missing in a Catholic church that in India that could actually transform it. But the truth is that the closer we get to other Christians, and in fact any people, things happen. Bad things happen sometimes. There's misunderstandings, there's miscommunications, we get hurt, we get disappointed. And this is just a fact of it, and just because we're Christian doesn't mean that we are free from all of these things. These are just a fact of human relationships. So the question is, how do we deal with this in a Christian way? And that's something that we are going to talk about in this episode.
So I guess I could share a little bit about my own experience with Christian relationships. For those who know me, you probably know that I am an introvert, although I do talk a lot and, I find it easy to share. I am actually quite happy to be home alone on my phone a lot of the time. That sounds great to me. And yet I've grown up in Christian community from the time I was fairly young. And it's been something that's really blessed me. And I've realized that for Christians, it's not optional to be in relationship with others, because otherwise our faith sort of remains at a idea level versus what it's supposed to be, which is a lived out reality. And so that's how I have tried to live over the years. And I found that the closer I've gotten to people, the more issues there tend to be. And both stuff that comes out of me and stuff that comes out of them. And I realized a part of it might also be, for me personally, is you kind of expect Christian relationships to be better than other relationships, right? You're like, hey, you're following Jesus, I'm following Jesus. Shouldn't it all be super great and cool and everything's always wonderful? But it's I expect perfection, and then I'm disappointed when people are not everything that I hoped they would be. And so that's been my particular struggle. So what about you, Krysanne? Do you feel that as you have grown closer to other Christians, do you feel there have been difficulties that have arisen in your relationships? Any kind of struggles?
Yeah, I think it's inevitable, and I think it's just the fact of being human, being fallen, is that we don't always behave perfectly. As much as I would like to think that I behave perfectly in all of my relationships, this might come as a shock to you, Susanna, but I'm not actually a perfect person.
What is this? Nobody told me this.
How can this be
perfect, Krysanne? You're an online Catholic. You are. Oh gosh, guys. We're really going through shocking secrets and stuff being revealed here. Krysanne's not perfect.
So yeah, that's just the fact of being a supremely imperfect person, is that I have caused problems as much as other people have caused problems. It's not like I've always been the victim. But something I've been thinking about is that I always found it hard to get close to people. Very much unlike you, Susanna, I'm a massive extrovert. Although now I'm kind of tending towards having introverted tendencies, but I'm still an extrovert at heart. And my entire life I've always wanted to be close to people, and I've always found it very hard to make friends because of many reasons, moving around, always being the new person, things like that. But I've experienced throughout my life just the difficulty of being close to people. And after I came to know God and decided that I wanted to live my life in a Christian way, I tried to apply my Christian faith to all the areas of my life, and one of those things were relationships. But the fact of it is, before I came to know God and after I came to know God, there were always challenges when it came to relationships. But my question was, how can I now approach this or try to understand this from a Christian lens? Surely the knowledge of Jesus should change the way that I approach even like friendship and relationships. Surely that even this part of my life should be transformed through the knowledge of God. That was like my understanding of it.
I think that's huge, Krysanne. I feel like a lot of people tend to live like with their faith compartmentalized. So you have your faith, your Jesus, your prayer, and then you have your relationships where just like there's all sorts of chaos happening. There's like, you're not talking to people, you're so angry with people. And I don't know whether we all really like integrate those two things. And I think we should, right? Because like the light of Christ is for every part of our lives, every part of our hearts. And so that's what we want to talk about today. Let me just ask you, Krysanne, like straight off, like, what are some things that you have found helpful in maintaining like good, healthy Christian relationships, and also maybe dealing with like conflicts as they arise, or like problems, things that you ways that people hurt you? Like, what do you do? How do you bring those things to Jesus?
So, a big thing, a big approach that has served me well over the years is basically assuming good intentions for people unless like I have definitive proof that they don't have good intentions. So this has helped me in really big ways, especially when there have been like many moments of like misunderstanding, or someone did something that I wish they didn't do. Maybe they said something to me, maybe they used a particular tone while speaking to me, maybe they like did not invite me for something, or I felt ignored by them or something like that. Is something that I just try to do as much as I can, is assume that they did not intend to harm me, and they did not intend to like hurt me, or make me feel like isolated or whatever. Like they were just maybe there were other factors that were influencing what they did. Maybe they had other things going on in their lives, which I think most people do, but we don't even realize that. And so, like, this has really helped me to assume the best. And also, like, because I am like operating under the general assumption that, people are not out to get me, and they're not trying to like, actively like whatever, distance themselves from me, or something like that. I'm also like able to have like honest conversations with them where I'm just like, hey, like, you did this thing and it hurt me and it made me feel this way. It made me feel forgotten or not important or something like that. And give them a chance to like actually like respond to that and like, apologize, because they did not intend to hurt me, but it happened anyway. And so like to give them a chance to like realize that and respond to that. So this has like really helped me over the years, because I think like sometimes our like default like reaction is just that obviously this person hates me, like obviously they did this thing to get back at me for something that I did some like whatever, some months ago, some years ago. And obviously now our relationship is like irrevocably changed. And then like when you assume good intentions, it's like you're giving the relationship a chance.
Right. And I think that's huge when you've already had a good relationship as well, to assume the best, to like hope for the best, and to give people a chance. Like, don't just like shut them down immediately. And I think, what you said about like talking to people, that's really difficult. But I think that's probably one of the biggest, like, most challenging things that God does ask us to do very often. And I just actually remembered something that happened some years ago, where I was the offender. So someone close to me had just, I think, gotten engaged, or maybe she had started dating. And I was so excited about it that I told other people about it.
Oh
Yes.
no.
See on your face, Krysanne, you know that this is not okay. And I guess I must have on some level known it was not okay, but I sort of like justified it, being like, well, it's happening to me too in a way, right? Like, it's like, yeah, this is how bad I was. So I was not very good at like keeping secrets. And I was like, well, she didn't specifically tell me it's a secret. So humiliating, right? But this is the thing, like it was obviously upsetting to her. She wanted to tell people, but this is what she did. Instead of like, burning our friendship or just like being angry with me without telling me, she told me. She said, Susanna, I wish you hadn't done that. Like, I wanted to tell people. And it was such a moment of grace for me, because like she was right. I was wrong. But she was willing to like give me the chance to like acknowledge that and be like, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have done that. Like, there's just no good reason for why I did that. And I'm so sorry. And she forgave me. And after that, I have been like 100 times more careful about like what I say and when I say it and who I say it to. So that was, a really beautiful moment of like someone, a good friend behaving like a Christian towards me and giving me a good chance. So yeah.
That's so big. I mean, like it's so amazing that she like gave you that chance to like, instead of just like cutting you off, right? Sometimes that's just like our so that reminds me of something that happened to me, like kind of similar, but I was on the other end of it, which is that I was working with this group of Christians, and we were like serving in a youth group together. And I was really new to the team. Like I was introduced to the team. Like I think it was probably just been like a month that I was on the team. And I showed up for this meeting with this very amazing idea. So I'm a huge ideas person. And I always think that my ideas are the best ideas, okay, which is like probably like one of my biggest flaws. So I showed up for this meeting with this really amazing idea, according to me, of what we could do with our youth. And I went all out. I prepared this like presentation, this like pitch deck, and I like went. So I just like, I was like, hey, I have this idea. And then I just presented it to everyone. And obviously, they were not expecting it. And also, that was not something that was a priority. This particular type of event that I was proposing was not a priority for the group at the moment. And also, like, I was really new. So I could have done well to just like wait and listen. But I didn't do that. I just like, like, they very gently kind of said no. And like moved on from my presentation. And I was really, really hurt by it. And I like, I spoke to a friend about it right after the meeting, and I was like in tears. And I was just like, they just don't care about my contribution, and they just don't care about my ideas. And I put so much of work into this, and they just didn't acknowledge that. And I think some of those things were valid, and some of those things were definitely me not understanding the priority at that point and just kind of prioritizing myself. And this friend of mine just encouraged me to like, she was like, hey, why don't you tell them that this is how you felt? And give them a chance to like respond to that, which is like so unheard of for me at that point, because I was like a baby Catholic, just kind of getting into like realizing how to deal with relationships in a healthy way. And like the prospect was so scary that I remember when I like brought it up at the next meeting, my hands were shaking. And I was just like, I don't even know how they're going to respond. But like, I trusted this friend, I trusted her advice. And so I just said it. I explained how I felt. I explained that I felt hurt. That my hard work was not acknowledged, that it was just brushed to the side so quickly. And these people in the team who, like, bless them, they were so gracious about just like receiving that and saying sorry, even though, like, now with the benefit of hindsight, I feel like they were probably in the right, but they were just so gracious about just being like, hey, yeah, like, we should have acknowledged your hard work. And so, we're sorry, we're really grateful for like, the thought that you put into it. And maybe at some point we're going to use your idea. So it's not a no, it's just a not now. And it was such a healing experience for me to know that I can actually like work on relationships and express when I am hurt and not have to just sit on this like mountain of resentment forever.
Yeah. Yeah, and what's really huge, what I'm hearing in your story, Krysanne, is like their Christian witness of. So you took did the Christian thing of like speaking up, and their Christian witness of being gracious. I was like,
yeah,
you know how many of us are gracious, right? We tend to be super defensive when somebody comes and like shares things, especially if they don't share it in the right way. So non-defensive listening, trying to apologize for, even if it's like something small, if there was some part that we could apologize for, like breaking down those barriers. I have one more little story. So this was when my family was very much in like a lot of Christian ministry when I was younger. And at the same time, among ourselves, we used to have a lot of like, struggles and fights. We were quite young, we were like teenagers. And I remember there was a time when we had like, sort of like a big blow up, a big fight. And it just felt like everyone was really angry with each other and didn't seem like we could move forward at all. And the whole family was sort of involved with it. I was not immediately like part of that particular fight, but we were all still part of the whole thing. And the really crazy thing is in that moment, like I stopped and I prayed, I think. And I felt a lot sort of convicting me, even though I was not part of the immediate problem, to in humility, to apologize for, to ask forgiveness for my part in some of the unhealthy dynamics in our family and our sibling relationships. And I did that. And it was so crazy because, like, in that moment, as I was able to honestly acknowledge my faults and failings to them out loud, it was like this big mountain, sort of like crumbled, like these walls that were just there and were just not coming down, came down. And so there's really something to be said for humility and like being able to be like, I'm sorry, like I have contributed to this problem, even though it may not all be your fault. Being
Yeah.
able to acknowledge as much as we can. I feel like that's huge for conflict resolution, for building healthy and holy relationships with our Christian friends. So, yeah, like graciousness in receiving others, humility and accepting our faults, and being able to speak up when we are the one who has been hurt or we're upset about something. Okay.
So, Susanna, what is your tip for maintaining healthy Christian relationships?
So, something that I have grown in because I've not always done well in this is accepting people as they are. Because I realize a lot of my issues come from feeling like people should act a certain way or be a certain way or respond a certain way. And I'm kind of like mad when they don't do that. And I feel like the Lord has sort of challenged me to be like let people be who they are. Like you don't have to control them, you don't have to change them, you don't have to like make them better or fix them. Like that's not your job. And a lot of the time, some of these things are just like personality differences. It's not even like there's anything really wrong with like the way that other people are doing it. But in my mind, my way is the best way, like you, Krysanne. We are obviously perfect in every way, therefore everybody else is imperfect, right?
Wrong.
So real. There's like feeling like, okay, like I know the right way, and you guys, you're doing it wrong. And so I feel like the Lord has helped me to try to grow. And I think I've grown in this. Be able to just look at people as they are, stop trying to like critique them or analyze them or be like, well, you should be more like this, and just try to focus on the good. So I guess there are two things: accepting them as they are and really focusing on commenting on trying to see the good that is there in that person, even though it's like not perfect, even though they are not perfect and not every aspect of their, the way that they deal with me is perfect. So I think that can be huge in good relationships, because I feel like when you feel accepted by someone else, you feel that they really see the good in you. You're able to have a good relationship. Whereas when you feel like somebody is critiquing you or like sort of like trying to fix you, you're sort of on your guard a lot more.
Yeah.
And I remember one of my close missionary friends giving me that gift. It's not like we didn't have issues. Like I came in with a lot of like my own immaturity into my first year of missions. And yet she was so gracious to me. We worked through some of our stuff. And overall, she just like looks at me and says, Susanna, you are such a wonderful gift to me and to our community. I was just like, wow, I am. And, like, and I was like, I could be more of that person. And so I feel like I would like to give that gift to others. I'm still not really doing it well, but I want to do it more, which is to be able to receive them with love and acceptance, even when they are different from me. And like to like see even our interactions through those lens. So to just be like, well, maybe she's just deals with things in a different way than I do.
Yeah,
so I feel
which
like
people do, right? Like not everyone is going to react to things in the same way that we do. Like I have a friend who is so different from me in the sense of like she just like she gets excited but she doesn't show it in the same way I do. And she like feels like, emotions but not in the same way I do. And sometimes I feel like when I'm next to her, like I am just like a completely different species of person from her. And I remember like in the beginning, I was just like, why can't you just be like me? Like, I just want you to like jump up and down when you're excited. And I want you to like have this very exaggerated like expression on your face when I tell you sad news. Like, I just want you to be the same type
feel
of
the
person I
feelings.
am. Yeah, like just be
You're not talking about
exactly
me,
like
right?
me. Susanna, your facial expressions are satisfactory. I'm happy to
Great,
I'm
great,
happy
great.
to inform you. But no, and then like over many, many years of friendship, I came to realize that this is just the type of person she is, and to like, appreciate that in her. that she's a very she gives like responses in a very measured way. She thinks through her responses before she speaks. That's something that's a big thing that I've learned from her. And like, I guess if I just like broke my head on the fact that we are so different, then our relationship, our friendship would not have proceeded to where it is now, where I count her as a very good friend, even though she's so different from me. And I feel like we are better off having each other in our lives because I have more compassion for people who are like her. And I think she has way more compassion for people who are like me. So I think it is a gift, like, the differences that everyone brings into friendships and relationships. If we allow them to be gifts, then they can really bless us. But I do feel the need to say here, Susanna, that we are talking about like differences that exist, like, among everyone. But what we are not talking about is certain behaviors that people can do that actually harm us or actually are not good for us. So those are not the types of behavior that we want to tolerate, right?
Hmm. Yeah, it's actually kind of challenging, right? Because it takes a lot of discernment to know the difference, which is why we are actually going to talk more about that in our next episode. How to discern the difference between like just perhaps like difficulties in relationships that can be resolved versus like something little more malicious, unhealthy, um,
Toxic.
people say toxic, right? The phrase used now is toxic relationships, toxic people. But is there a time, is there a place where it is wiser, where God wants you to move away from a particular relationship or group or dynamic that is happening? And so we'll talk more about that in our next episode. But very briefly, before we close this episode, I want to ask you, Krysanne, we've talked about like difficulties in relationships with like other Christian friends. Would any of this stuff apply to like Christian groups, like ministries or like communities, or where like there might be disappointments in the way that perhaps leaders have treated us? There might be perhaps like differences of ideas of like the way that we think the direction of a group should take. There might be particular elements of a group which were like this is not what I signed up for, this is not really what I wanted. Maybe even like perhaps sometimes in a parish or with like choir or SPP or like different groups that you might be a part of, like working together with other Christians. Do you think any of the things that we just said could apply to those kind of relationships as well?
I think they definitely apply. And I feel like we are much less likely to try to work on those relationships, especially when they are like in a ministry setting or in a group setting. I feel like the temptation or the tendency is to carry a lot of resentment for like certain types of people who we have worked with, or like, to never really get to that place of lovingly confronting them, of assuming best intentions, of forgiving them, of asking for forgiveness. I feel like in my experience, for some reason it's just so much harder to do it, like, in these group levels. I think that in general we carry these expectations that because this is a Christian group, and because like we are whatever, we're doing these things in the parish, like, that everyone's going to behave perfectly in accordance with my expectations. And we very often forget that people are deeply flawed, that we're all, sinners, and none of us is perfect yet, including us. And so to like carry that humility that, maybe we're more likely to try to work on our relationships with our families, our relationships with our best friends. And when it comes to like, church, choir, ministry, things like that. We're just living in a sea of broken relationships. And I don't think this is how God wants his church to be. I think like he wants to redeem our relationships, like even in our parishes. It shouldn't be the norm that you're just like avoiding, like, so many people in your parish because of all of these like hurts that have accumulated over the years. I think that we have a responsibility, as much as it is within our control, to try to have good relationships, even with those who we work with or serve with.
Right. And I think that, again, there are like the two types of things. One thing is like relationships and communities and groups that like perhaps you can approach and deal with in a Christian way. And sometimes those things are not going to work. And then maybe it's time to move away which is what we'll talk more about in the next episode. But I think some of the points we talked about for like relationships would work in the same way with like groups, because one of the things I've realized over the years of being part of many different groups is that no group is perfect, and we tend to expect them to be perfect. We're like, I'm just going to
Yes.
group and it's going to be wonderful. These people are going to be like my guiding lights. They're going to be like these holy saints that's around me. We're just going to run towards Jesus together. I'm going to be so inspired by them. And you're like, oh my gosh, like he just like did this thing to me. He just spoke so abruptly. Like what, like she didn't even like, whatever. Like there are definitely things which are like, that's not, I feel like we need to grow in this. I think that this group is not doing well in this area. And you might be right, some of those things are actually things that need to change and grow. So what do we do with that? Like either, I guess the unchristian thing is just to completely like be so critical and just like write people off, write everyone off, just be like, these people are useless, hopeless, whatever. But perhaps like a Christian way to deal with some of this is, one is to try to see the good. I think that would be a good starting point, to try to focus on the good, to see the many things that are good. And then when there are things which are negative, which are not appropriate, if someone has dealt with things in a not healthy way, to approach them and to talk to them and to give them to the chance to acknowledge it, to apologize, to try to do better. And if we are in a position, right, like leading a group or in any kind of like leadership, to be able to receive people in the same way rather than writing people off and be like, oh, like those people just won't like cooperate with the rest of us, they just don't have like the right kind of spirit. But to be able to receive them too with that humility and graciousness, being open to hearing, like in a non-defensive way, to like hearing from other people's experiences too. So I feel like that would be like such a like radical different way, right, of like Christian relationships in our
Yeah.
communities, in our groups, in our parishes, where
Yeah,
people don't
I
just
would
like,
love to be, I would love to experience that in my parish or in like most parishes. I
yeah,
would just love to, I would just love for that to be the environment where people are actively reconciling with each other, where they are assuming the best in each other, where they are working on broken relationships, that they are humbly asking for forgiveness. I feel like this is the real stuff, right? Like this is where we are living out our Christian lives. And I feel like it's almost more important than what we are doing together. Like, how we are being together. I feel like, for example, the choir,
yeah,
like how the choir
absolutely,
members are being with each other is more important than like, how they sing, because I feel like it influences that. Like what I can offer to
absolutely,
God, it comes out of like my relationship with the person who's standing next to me.
yeah,
So I
yeah.
feel like we should be working on that.
I want to bring out like one really important biblical piece of wisdom that I think has helped me a lot over the years. You mentioned, giving people the benefit of the doubt and being like, perhaps they didn't realize what they were doing. They, might have just accidentally said this thing without realizing. But, there are going to be times where there are people, who are deliberately doing it for whatever reason. They might be hurting us, they might be hurting others, they might be, unchecked, sort of like just being sarcastic, mean, nasty, critical, making these snide comments to us about us. People within our friend circles, like in our Christian groups, like sadly that it can happen. And I found something that has been really beautiful to me in, I think it's, okay, I actually don't remember. I think it's in Romans. It says, as far as it depends on you, be at peace with all. Okay, so that's the first thing. And the second thing is, do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. And I just,
Mm.
every time that just like fills my heart, because I'm just like, okay, I know what I have to do. Like kill him with kindness, like just overcome evil with good, bring light into that darkness. Like just completely ignore the bad stuff. If, it's a situation where it's probably like not the best thing to talk about it. But it's just like little things, that people are saying, just show them so much love, show them so much kindness, show them so much graciousness, like go out of your way to love them and serve them and be there for them. And I
Yeah.
have found that people have changed, when you do that for
Yeah.
them. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that
And
could
and
be
you know,
another really
maybe they've
thing.
not been loved in that way before. Maybe they've
Yeah,
not been totally accepted in that way before. And that's why they're entering every relationship with all of their claws out and trying to be on the defense. And
Yeah,
I think when we love
absolutely.
each other, when we try to show that, I see you and I accept you totally as you are, that creates that like space, that safe space for people to
Yeah,
become themselves and to lower their defenses.
uh,
So yeah, love can really be one of the most powerful weapons.
absolutely. It's like bringing Christ like right to them, like I will allow Christ to love, like to be in me. I will show you the love of Christ, like not as like a theory, but right now you will feel it from me. And like, wow, like I found that it does like break down barriers. So yeah, I think these are all like huge, helpful things. At least I found all of this stuff to be helpful in my walk with other Christians. Um, and yes, we're going to be talking about like the slightly darker side of some of this in the next episode, which is where, when
That's
sometimes
so
these,
dramatic.
it's so dramatic, guys. Obviously, you need to listen to the next episode. And we hope that you have received something through this. We would love to hear from you. If you have reached this episode, please let us know that you've heard it, and we would love to hear and know like whether this has been something that has helped you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening and stay tuned for the next episode. And yeah, bye.
Bye.